We can all agree that Manatee County and Bradenton is definitely a little slice of paradise. I think we can all agree that definitely over the last few years, the secret seems to have certainly gotten out, and people are moving here in large numbers. Our population is growing and growing and growing, which obviously leads to inevitable things like more development, more houses, leading to things like the need for more roads and more schools and more infrastructure. And certainly nothing is for free, so we have to find a way to come up with a healthy balance of how are we going to create and foster an environment that welcomes all these people that are coming into our community to make it a more thriving and busy and wonderful place, but how do we offset it in a way that gives them all the services they want while keeping everyone happy? And I'm sure no matter which side of this issue or which opinion you may have on it, we can all agree that this is a pretty fine line to dance around, and that everyone has certainly the best intentions for our area and their business and the people of this county in mind. So we as a board of directors really thought that this would be a terrific topic to address today. That being said, I just want to quickly recognize all of our board of directors. If you can quickly stand and be identified. These are the people that work very, very hard to put these on every month, so thank you. We'll go ahead and get right into it because I'm probably the person at this group that everybody wants to hear from least. We will introduce first Mr. Mark Barnaby. Mark is a Florida board certified in city, county, and local government law. He has practiced in land use and local government law for the past 30 years. He has successfully represented clients regarding a wide variety of development projects, including multi-use projects, an arena, and a power plant. He served as the senior land use attorney for Manatee County for 13 years, and as a school board attorney or a special counsel for another 12 years. He currently serves as city attorney for the city of Palmetto and counsel for several special district and agencies. He is board certified in city, county, and local government law. Among his lecture presentations, he participated in all 19 certification review courses and in the first Florida Bar live simulcast seminar speaking on the topic of quasi-judicial proceedings. That is a mouthful, Mark. He received the Paul S. Buckman Award for outstanding contributions to local government law from the city, county, and local government law section and was awarded the George W. Simons Award by the Florida Planning and Zoning Association for contributions to planning and land use for the state. He received the 2011 Community Service Award for the Manatee County Bar Association for his record of service to the community. Please welcome Mr. Mark Barnaby.
All right. Didn't know I was going to be up that quick. All right. Impact fees. Are impact fees a fair revenue generator, or are they an affordable housing killer? All right. You can put, if this is a spoiler alert, if you want to put your hands over your ears and don't want to hear the answer to this question, you can do that now. All right. Here's the answer. Yes. It is both. All right, but we'll talk about that in a little more detail, I guess. If you don't, but if you're done, you can take your cookie and go home. All right, I will present the foundation on how we kind of got here. Some historic stuff. I was involved in both the county impact fee adoption in 1986 and the school board adoption in 2002, and so I have at least some background. And it is amazing how the subjects that we're talking about today were issues in each of those adoptions. All right, you need to go back to the 1920s when land development was being built, formed, and we started regulating land use in this country. The 1922 Uniform Planning Act that many of the local governments adopted included a provision for developers to do the work for infrastructure that were needed by their developments. Now, one of the problems with that, though, is they were largely limited to just their own properties. So in the 60s and 70s, local governments began discovering that they had off-site improvements that were not being met, mostly on a regional and area around those developments. And so they started looking for other funding sources. They were also getting outcries from locals saying, hey, we need somebody else to pay for this. The local governments should not be paying for this because we wouldn't need these improvements but for the growth. That's not totally true, but there was some outcry to that effect. So what are impact fees? Well, impact fees are single payments made by developers at the time of development based on a proportionate share of capital costs for major infrastructure improvements. Now, there was a lot of discussion about this, and they must meet a dual rational nexus test. This is the legal part of your presentation. The amount of the fees must approximately be equivalent to the impact of the local development on whatever they're funding, and the fees must be collected to be used in such a way to address system capacity issues caused by the development. So not only do they have to correspond with what we're doing, but they have to match up with the benefits have to also go to the development. They cannot be used for maintenance. They cannot be used for operational costs. They cannot be used to fix deficiencies or problems caused by other types of uses coming into your community. And they must be allowed to give credit if the developer actually puts the improvements in. Now, in 1986, the county and the cities adopted impact fees relating to transportation and a number of other things. School boards were 2002. About 7 to 8 years ago, you may have noticed that the economy did not do well, and then the county cut their fees essentially in half. And the county, at the school board's request, stopped the collection on theirs. So, but recently they've made change. They've come back. They've re-looked at their fees and they've increased the fees. You're reinstating them largely to their maximums or close to their maximums, or in the school board's case, they started imposing them again at least at 50%. So what does this mean if you happen to want to build your dream home? All right. You have good imaginations. All right, assume this is your little house on the prairie, or in this case, maybe a little house on the ranch. And if it is a house in southwest unincorporated Manatee County, a 2,000 square foot house, your impact fees are going to be this. For transportation, it's going to be $4,500. Law enforcement, it's about $500. Parks and natural resources are about $1,200. Public safety, about $250. Education, about $3,200. And there's a small administrative fee for a total of just over $10,000. Now, and here's where the question comes into play. Is that fair? Well, let's remember, for a $100,000 home, that is another 10% on top of that. That's a pretty big chunk. For a $5 million home, that's 0.2% of the cost of the house. So for people that are likely to buy a $100,000 home, it is a much bigger chunk of money and makes it much less likely that you're going to be able to develop and build your home for that kind of money. Now, before I go a little bit further in this, I should note that it's important to remember that impact fees are a very important part of what we do to make sure that infrastructure is in place. The county has collected about $251 million in road impact fees since 1986. Parks, $35 million. And others, $37.7 million, all their other ones. And they have done dozens of projects with these. And I want to hit a couple of those because I think they're important. US 301 in the Parish area, those improvements there. 44th Avenue Cortez Road. US 301 at the University Parkway intersection, Lockwood Ridge Road. Honore Road. All of those are important projects that have been done, at least in part, with monies raised from impact fees. Parks, Lakewood Ranch Park, Bennett Park, Conservatory Park, and those are just some of the small number of projects that have been done. On the school side, they started a little later. They've collected about $61 million, and some of those funds went to, not surprisingly, projects generated by growth. Braden River High, Willis Elementary, Buffalo Creek Middle, Palmetto High Addition, Palmasola Addition, among others, all generated by growth issues. It is important to remember, I think, that impact fees are part of one part of a balanced approach to fund projects. So, are the impact fees fair? Well, let's face it. If you're living in a house and you're a four-person family, whether you make $100,000, your house is $100,000 or $5 million, your impacts on those services are likely to be very similar. So, are they fair? Yes, but do they cause other problems? Yes. I think you need to look at whether or not are they too high compared to what is needed for the low-income and workforce housing folks, and that's an issue that they probably need to be supplemented in some way to help pay for those. And is that too much, does that cause too much of a market, expense on the market to prevent people from buying and building those homes? Perhaps. The county has traditionally helped pay for certain low-income housing, but they have not had an opportunity they have not helped all those types of housing. And so I think that's something the county ought to be looking at as they move forward in the future. My time is up, but I'll be happy to answer any questions, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk today. Thanks.
Thank you, Mark. Next up, we have Mr. Morgan Bentley. Morgan is the managing partner and founder of the litigation firm of Bentley, Bruning, PA. He concentrates his practice in the area of litigation involving business and real estate disputes. He handles trial and civil proceedings, as well as complex arbitrations and administrative hearings. Third-generation Floridian from Lakeland, he received his undergraduate degree with honors from UF in 1988, where he was a member of Phi Beta Kappa and the Florida Blue Key Leadership Honorary. After working with the British House of Commons after college, Mr. Bentley received his Juris Doctor with honors from the University of Florida in 1992, where he served as an associate editor of the Florida Law Review and was a member of the Order of the Coif. Mr. Bentley is admitted to practice in the Florida State Courts, the Middle District of Florida, and the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals. As a past chairman of the Florida Commission on Ethics, he has been twice appointed by the Speaker of the House of Representatives, and is also a past president of the Sarasota County Bar Association, past president of the Legal Aid of Minnesota. Mr. Bentley is a former member of the Florida Board of Governors, Young Lawyer Division, and the Executive Council of the Florida Bar's General Practice Section. He is the past chair for Manatee County Chamber of Commerce School Issues Committee, past president for the Young Lawyer Division, Sarasota County Bar Association, and a life fellow of the American Bar Association. Please welcome Mr. Morgan Bentley.
You know, I have to say the best thing about coming to these things is that my mother is very proud, and she will be watching this on DVR over and over and over again, showing all her friends. So before I'm told I have to start my watch, but before I do that, I because this is my first time at your Manatee Tiger Bay, I have to say a couple of things. First off, I love the location. When I was a kid, I have the honor of having wrecked my dad's boat into that dock right outside during happy hour. And it was really the defining moment of my adolescence. And extricating a boat off a dock while, I don't know, 150 drunk people watch has got to be the highlight of anybody's nautical career. The other thing is, I am from Florida, so I've seen a lot of bad development. So if I sound slightly negative on impact fees today, don't think that it's because I don't know what we're trying to wrestle with. It's just there are some issues. So Mark did a great job. Now I will start. Oh, so did you. Thank you. And make it 7, not 6. Thank you very much. They told me 8 minutes, and I was like, you want to do 25 years of litigation in 8 minutes? So I got the short straw with Mark to talk about what the dual rational nexus test is. So get your coffee. Take notes. There's a test later. He set it up very nicely, though. He said the dual rational nexus test is this. It has to be dual rational nexus, meaning, that's why they name it that, by the way. It has to be related to the impact that the development creates. That's one. And the tax has to be rationally related to that impact created. That's 2. Hence the name. That sounds easy, doesn't it? Sounds very, very simple. But the fact is that in practice, it gets really, really hard to put in. I've heard it described as either the perfect marriage of law and economics or Frankenstein's monster, depending on which side of the equation you're on. Because here's the way it works, is everyone remember externalities from your Eco 101 class in college? Raise your hand. Anyone? Yeah, he did. He's not going to admit it. One person. Okay, so externalities are those things that industry creates that are not captured by the business model of the industry. Smokestacks, air pollution, things like that. So the idea of capturing an externality is, look, if you're not going to include this in your business model, we need to have some method by which we incorporate that for you. So air pollution taxes are a perfect example of that kind of capturing externalities. So in essence, what an impact fee is just that. It's trying to capture the externality that a development creates by its very existence. So all the things that Mark mentioned, and this part is easy. The first part of the dual rational nexus test is really pretty easy. What does development do? As Mark said it, it's if you're alive and breathing and moving out of your house, you're impacting the community outside the development, whether that's roads, law enforcement, sewer and water, utilities, schools, you name it, right? Everybody okay with that so far? Nod. Yep, okay. You guys, by the way, are the most intellectual Tiger Bay in Florida by far. Just because you're having this discussion, I got to tip the hat to you. So that part's usually pretty easy, but it's not actually as easy as it would sound, and I'll get to that in a second, in 4 minutes and 47 seconds. The second part is usually where it falls down, is how do you tie the cost and tax to the impact created? And let me give you the easy example. A toll road is like an impact fee. That is a user fee, and that is closely tied and aligned to the use that's being done. So for instance, when I drive on the road, I pay the fee, right? If I don't drive on the road, I don't pay the fee. Simple. That is a good tie to an impact fee. Now, if I impose an impact fee in Manatee County, Florida, to build a school in Seattle, Washington, not a close tie to the impact created. So that's the difference is somewhere between the school in Seattle and the toll road impact fee, and there is where the devil is in the details. So let me give you some live examples of what I mean by that. There is for instance, schools. Schools is a good example. Manatee County, in their county impact fee, did a very nice job of dividing some of the impact fees into quadrants. So for instance, parks, in your impact fee ordinance, you divide into quadrants because, again, it doesn't make sense if I'm in Parrish and I'm gonna build a park down on University Parkway, I'm not likely to use that. And so it would fail the test of whether or not an impact fee is valid or not. And why is that important? Because impact fees are only valid if they're not a tax. And doesn't that sound like legal mumbo jumbo? Doesn't it? It does, and it is. But there's a reason for it, is because a tax is something that we all pay together, whether or not we're actually creating that need or not. You know, I haven't called an ambulance in my entire life, but I'm certainly glad to pay tax so that we have ambulances. But an impact fee is something that I am creating. So when you go to the court, what the court's going to say is that is tied to that? Because if it's not, it's a tax, and if it's a tax, it's invalid. So that's the little game that's being played with this methodology about the impact fees. So I'll give you another live example. We talked about parks. We talked about going to talk about schools a little bit. Superintendent Greene's already heard me say this, so I won't repeat it too much. But there are arguments about, well, if you have schools that are below capacity, why are we building schools, brand new schools, when we could utilize those other ones as they exist? And that's the kind of argument that goes back and forth as to validity. But I'll give you another live example, and this is my favorite, not to pick on Commissioner Bakker or anybody, but Manatee County's impact fee has a provision in it that says that they are going to pay for more prison beds. That sounds good, right? They are going from 28 prison beds to 100 prison beds for all new development, okay? Now, go back to what I explained about whether the impact of the development is being paid for by that tax. Under the dual rational nexus test, you have to prove that the development that is going in creates, A, enough criminals to fill 82 more prison beds, and unhealthy criminals to boot. Because not only do you have to have more criminals, you have to have more unhealthy criminals. So I would challenge any consultant to come up with a methodology that captures that Carlos Bruce's next development is going to be catered to, halfway houses that produce felons that are unhealthy with issues. That's the kind of issue that goes on with impact fees, because it sounds great. It sounds like a panacea that you pay for what you do. But the fact is the devil is in the detail on these impact fees. And if you cross that line, if you cross the line from paying for something that you don't do, then you're into a tax. And here's where what Mark mentioned, I'm going to pick up on the very last part in my last 57 seconds. The courts have done us no favors with impact fees. What the courts have done, and there's an old saying, hard facts make bad law. So what they've done is there's a case called Northeast Builders. There's another case called Aberdeen. And what they did is they were presented with a difficult situation. So in Northeast Builders, a developer came up and said, look, I only build over 55 housing. By definition, I don't have kids. Kids are not allowed in my development. Why, oh why, am I paying school impact fees? They lost at the trial court, by the way. Just for any of my future clients, if I lose a trial, it's not always the end of the world. You can win on appeal like these guys did. They go up on appeal. And the court says, yeah, you're right. If you don't have kids, why are you paying school impact fees? You're exempted, right? Sounds reasonable, right? But guess what? Guess who now has to pay to build all those schools? Everybody else. So by definition, the cost of schools is being shifted to other people. Now, whether or not that's an unfair shift or not is above my pay grade. The other type of thing on that is low-income housing. Low-income housing is exempted from payment of impact fees in many circumstances. Well, don't tell me that low-income housing people aren't having kids or driving on roads or calling ambulance services. And I'd go back to the older 55. The older 55 community isn't being required to pay for more ambulance service. So you can see how this camel's nose gets under the tent with these impact fees and trying to tie them to what the actual impact is to a particular development. And it's a slippery slope. I'm not against impact fees. I just think that they are often sort of, you paint with a broad brush with impact fees, and oftentimes you miss the target. And it's unfair not just to developers, but it's unfair to the rest of us who end up having to pay one way or another. I see my time is up. If you have any questions, thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Bentley. Yes, you do bring up a good point that I hadn't even brought up at the beginning, is that these impact fees are directly related to the cost of affordable housing that has also become an extremely important topic that has been on the forefront of everyone's minds. And how do we make this impact fee work towards affordable housing as well, and creating an area for the younger generation to move in and have a place to live and work and play. Our next speaker up is Superintendent Diana Greene. After serving a brief period of time as the interim superintendent in the wake of the former superintendent, the school board voted to appoint Dr. Diana Greene as the superintendent of the Manatee County School District on June 9th. Her oath of office was officially signed on June 10th. Dr. Greene has been in education with more than 28 years of combined experience in senior executive leadership, curriculum development, staff development, school administration, and teaching. Dr. Greene joined the School District of Manatee County in 2013 as Deputy Superintendent of Instructional Services. In 1 year, she led academic initiatives to increase 24 schools at least one letter grade and 7 two-letter grades, increased math scores by 9%, reading by 3%, and writing by 10%. As Deputy Superintendent, she co-facilitated a plan that moved our district from an $8 million deficit to a $14 million surplus in 1 year. She also developed a comprehensive plan to reduce the number of African American males in exception student education, ESE, and increase the number of African American males in gifted programs. Her upbringing has prepared her for adapting quickly in a new environment. Her father was in the Air Force, and she has lived all over the country and abroad. She and her husband are members of Pathways Christian Fellowship Church. Her hobbies include golf, tennis, and enjoying going to the movies. Dr. Greene is married to James Greene, a financial advisor for First Command, and they have 2 sons, Alden and Joshua. Please welcome Superintendent Greene.
Good afternoon. I can tell you impact fees have had more than just an impact. I don't get to go to the movies, play tennis, or do any of that because I've been working really hard on helping our community understand the position currently of our school board as it relates to impact fees. Mark did a great job of sharing with you when the school district was collecting impact fees, what facilities were built, and impact fees were partially used to fund those facilities. What I want to talk about is during the time of the moratorium to share with people the facilities that needed to be built and that were built due to a sales tax, and we were not collecting impact fees. So during the time of 2009 to present day, the school district built Roger Gardens Elementary School, Palmetto High School Auditorium and the addition, Manatee Technical College, as well as Samoset Addition. All of those facilities were built without the use of impact fees. However, those facilities, because they were related to growth, we could have used impact fees for those facilities. During the same period of time, which there could be some overlap, we also replaced a number of facilities that were not meeting the standard. We replaced Miller Elementary School, renovated Manatee High School, and we replaced King Middle School. None of those whether it was a renovation or a brand-new replacement school, we could not use impact fees for those facilities. Today, when we look at our master plan of what is needed in our district as it relates to growth, underutilized facilities, facilities that need to be brought up to standard, we have about $159 million worth of facilities that we need to bring on board for growth. The number one is a new high school north of the river. We can use impact fees to help build that high school. A high school today, a comprehensive high school, it ranges somewhere between $70 to $80 million to build. In our best year of collecting of impact fees, the most the district has collected is close to $16 million. As you can see, without the support, major support of a sales tax, it would take, if you do the math, many years before we could raise enough money for impact fees to build this new high school. In addition, the school district cannot bond against impact fees. We can only bond against a half-cent sales tax. One, because it is longer, we collect more. Today, we're collecting about $30 million per year through the sales tax. So, as the superintendent, I believe it is my job to figure out what's best first for our students and how we can best fund that. Right now, we have close to $300 million of needs for current facilities that exist in our school district. Today, we need to have a replacement school for Onico Elementary. We need to build a replacement school for Tillman Elementary. We need to do major renovations to Sugg Middle and Harley Middle, as well as we are decommissioning Orange Ridge Elementary, and we will be bringing to the board to decommission Wakeland Elementary. We are finding that balance of how do we support our school district with growth and balance taking care of the needs that are here. Many of you grew up in Manatee County. You may have attended one of the schools that I've just spoken about. I'm sure you would want us to ensure that we make sure those schools are up to standard. Many of our schools, that $300 million, they're in the central corridor. They're in our neighborhoods of our most fragile and students of poverty. And it is our responsibility to ensure that those facilities meet the same high standards that we set by replacing King Middle and Miller Elementary. So impact fees are needed and they play a role, but we need to balance between having that revenue as well as ensuring reinstating the half-cent sales tax, which for Manatee County sunsets December of 2017. So I believe the board made a conscious decision to ensure that we can gain both revenues, handle our growth, as well as maintain our facilities at a very high standard, because every student deserves a high-quality education, and their zip code should not determine how high that quality is. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Greene. Our final speaker today is Mr. Peter Logan. Peter is president of Medallion Homes. He has over 17 years of experience in real estate, primarily in land acquisition, development, and new home construction. He has been working for Medallion Homes since 2007. Mr. Logan is a member of the Manatee Sarasota Building Industry Association, Home Builders Association of Lake Sumter, Gulf Coast Builders Exchange, Manatee County Transportation Users Group, and the Wabash College Alumni Association. He is a past director of the HBA of Lake Sumter, where he was voted by his peers as the 2015 Builder of the Year. Mr. Logan was also recently appointed as a trustee for the State College of Florida by Governor Rick Scott. Mr. Logan graduated from Wabash College with a Bachelor of Arts. He moved to Florida in 2002 and currently lives in Manatee County. Please welcome Peter Logan.
Thank you very much. I thought What everyone has said so far was very interesting, except for Morgan's. I started to nod off during his. Until he made an announcement of our change in marketing direction, where apparently we're selling houses to unhealthy criminals from halfway houses. And it's on TV. When Carlos gets back from his campaign tonight, I'm going to have a discussion with him. I wasn't aware of that. I'd like to first start off by saying that as a builder and developer in Manatee County, we want good roads and good schools. And I'd also like to qualify anything I say here by letting you know that the opinions here are mine, and that on behalf of Medallion Home, and I don't represent every builder or developer in Manatee County. But good roads and good schools are critical components of selling homes and communities. These quality of life issues require funding solutions, whether that is a result of reallocation of budgetary line item expenses or alternative funding sources. Impact fees are, of course, one possible funding source for capacity-related improvements to our road and school infrastructure. However, impact fees are selective and are a punitive tax. Let me repeat that. Impact fees are tax targeting new home construction. 91% of all homes sold in Manatee County are resales or used homes, and not new homes at all. Our current impact fee system is structured so that the balance, or 9%, of residential homes sold in Manatee County, those would be the ones that have impact fees assessed against them, currently facilitate 100% or bear 100% of the burden for growth needs for the local roads and schools. There's no equality in this structure. Do we really believe that our friends from Ohio and Michigan and New York only buy new homes? Do we really believe that everyone who has lived in Manatee County their entire lives only buy resales or used homes? Of course not. But based on these two assumptions, we've created a taxing system to help pay for new roads and new schools. Impact fees are not the solution. On the school side, as Ms. Greene pointed out, they're only projected to generate approximately $9 million in revenue. That, of course, pales in comparison to the need of a new high school in North County, where she said it would cost approximately $70 to $80 million to get a nice, newly appointed high school. And which she also mentioned, you're stealing my thunder now, the $9 million is not bondable. So you can't leverage the $9 million in revenues to get additional funds to help build the $70 or $80 million school. There are other ways to do so, one of which she mentioned. Alternatively, a smaller per transactional tax on every real estate closing is both equitable and much more expansive. Why wouldn't everyone buying property in Manatee County be contributing toward road and school increased capacity funding? Those funds are also bondable, which means the county could grow its capital resources to cover needed infrastructure projects. A sales tax would also satisfy this. We prefer the documentary stamp tax, but Ms. Greene's right, a sales tax is bondable. One other option, if we wanted to choose to continue to penalize new construction, would be to identify the break-even point where new construction pays for itself, i.e. fiscal neutrality. Before the recent increase in impact fees, that was a purchase price of about $289,000. After the increase in impact fees, that number is now about $226,000. Again, what that means is that at this price point, at $226,000, a new home has zero fiscal impact on Manatee County because the revenues it creates from all the different taxes that are collected help offset the impacts that are created for the county. If we wanted to be equitable, we would not penalize new home transactions that exceeded $226,000. For their buyers are essentially being taxed twice. They pay for the impact fee and the purchase price of their home, and they also contribute taxes towards the bottom line. A chart could easily be identified that would demonstrate the true-up amount due based on the purchase price. You could do this in increments of $5,000, and a true-up would have to be paid at closing or subsequent to closing. Through lien rights and building permit controls, the county would have the ability to control that and implement such a program. As it relates to affordability, impact fees do not help. As many have stated publicly, nearly all builders and all builders that I'm aware of pass impact fees directly on to the buyer. At Medallion, our costs have increased by up to $7,500 per home as a result of this recent increase in impact fees. We've already passed all those costs on to the buyer. We changed every one of our price sheets in every Manatee community to already absorb that. So we as a builder do not absorb that. That goes directly onto a buyer, making the house more expensive. Total government costs here in Manatee County for each floor plan can be up to 6% of what a buyer pays. Again, all this passed through to the buyer, not absorbed. So the greater the governmental costs are to build new homes, the higher the prices go to the buyer. Buyers that are sensitive to monthly payment amounts can easily be priced out of the market. A 2x4 is a 2x4. It doesn't matter if you build a $100,000 home or a $5 million home, as Mark alluded to earlier. So there are really only three costs that impact the affordability. Your land costs, the costs and time associated with the entitlement and permitting process for development, and the governmental fees to build a house. Additionally and disproportionately, the new impact fee ordinance has changed the way it assesses impact fees to townhouses, treating them as single-family units. The result is an increase of up to $4,600 per unit for a buyer of a townhome. As you all know, townhomes have traditionally provided an affordable housing alternative to single-family detached homes. Lastly, there will be some say that all we need to do is to artificially stop growth. Please note that we live in the greatest country in the world. Under our existing government, citizens enjoy many freedoms. Just like in a capitalistic society, you cannot stop progress. In a free society, you can't stop growth. The people decide that. The sun shines here 300 days a year. We have beautiful beaches, palm trees, a rich culture, and lots to do. We literally live in paradise even when compared to other Florida markets. We cannot stop people from desiring to move here. Quite honestly, I don't think we want to, as real estate's one of the top 3 industries in Manatee County. We believe the county leadership should continue to encourage outside-the-box thinking, focusing on resolutions with the input of all stakeholders. As a home builder, I know that our industry is an economic driver for the county, and we want to continue to be good corporate citizens. Our sales increase tax rolls. Our buyers don't enjoy the initial benefit of the homestead exemption to keep their assessed value increases capped. So we need to have real dialogue about how to fund infrastructure needs created by growth. But the dialogue needs to be equitable and needs to include all the stakeholders. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Logan. At this time, in true Tiger Bay fashion, we will be opening up the floor to take questions from quickly lining up Tiger Bay members. If you are not a Tiger Bay member and would like to ask a question, we are giving you the opportunity today for the bargain price of a $100 membership, payable right over there at Tulane. That joke never gets old, does it? The other thing we want to remind you, just out of consideration to all of the members here and all of the questions that we will have today, number one, please keep your question to a 30-second minimum. And secondly, please... maximum, sorry. Thank you. Also, please direct who you would like your question to be answered by, whether it be one or two or all of the members. Feel free to state that so that each member here at the table knows to get up and respond. Lastly, we ask that you focus on keeping that in question format. No one wants to hear a 2-minute tirade of opinion. Eyes will roll, people will groan, and no one will talk to you at cocktail parties, and then you'll be that really awkward guy. So thank you again. We'll go ahead and get started with Marla.
I recently worked with an apartment developer in Sarasota County. He went through extensive efforts for his affordable apartment complex project, and he decided not to do the project, and he stated the reason being the increase in the impact fees. He said the utility connection fees were in line with the industry throughout Southwest Florida, but he said, I'm going to do something somewhere else in Southwest Florida. So we seem to be at cross purposes with our affordable housing goals and our increase in impact fees. How do we resolve that?
Well, let's start with this comment. I think impact fees are just one part of the blanket of funding that you need and part of the fabric of what you need to be involved. I think Dr. Greene pointed out that the sales tax is certainly one way to look at and cut some of those fees down. I think, and by the way, tourists pay about 30% of that tax, so I think that's one thing that everybody ought to be thinking about when they're looking at sales tax issues. But there are other things that come into play with that. Obviously, property taxes are in there. I think everybody wants to try to stay away from property tax increases. We can fund some of those costs through the government and make up some of those issues, but I think it's going to be a combination of things that do that. We do have to be cognizant of what's going on with our neighboring communities. I think that's important. It's maybe even more important on commercial and industrial, because if there's a big difference, they'll notice those sort of things. And those fees get very big. I had a commercial project where the impact fees were $650,000, and it was just just an expansion. It wasn't even a new project. So, it's a lot of money, and we need to be thinking about making sure that we're competitive with surrounding properties. But as was pointed out by Pete, look, this is the best place in Florida to come visit and come live, and I think we're going to continue to see some of these problems.
Okay, and the second question for Dr. Greene. In my family tree, the millennials are still renting apartments. None of them have stepped up to home ownership, and none of them have produced offspring to increase the school population. So my question is, what is the millennial effect on school population, and what years do we expect them to drive growth and decline?
Well, I had a simple answer, but I won't share it. Well, what we're seeing today is that we are dealing with, we're dealing with poverty. Our poverty, of children of poverty, is growing exponentially in Manatee County. And so part of that issue is many more other organizations need to be involved in answering that question. But for us, we do not see a decline just in Manatee County for the next 10 years. Okay. We see continued growth. So they're having them.
I was really happy to hear you talk about the impact of the sales tax, because I would like for you to look into the future, 5 to 10 years from now. If impact fees pass and the sales tax doesn't, how does that affect, the construction of schools and our infrastructure and the technology and all the classroom needs, and how does it affect our students?
If the half-cent sales tax does not pass, everything will come to a screeching halt because, again, I stated we cannot bond against impact fees, and so it will be going back to pay as you go. So if our number one priority is to have a new high school north of the river opening up 2019, it will not open up 2019. We will have to just depend on those impact fees to save up enough dollars to move forward with building that new high school. And that does not take into account the new elementary school that we will need in another year north of the river, the new middle school that we will need going out towards 64. Those will not happen. So the growth will continue to strain Lakewood Ranch High School, Braden River High School. And for those of you who do not know it, the state legislature passed a law that now school choice is statewide. It will be implemented in 2017. Well, if families move here and they find that, the school that I want to attend, there's no space, they'll go somewhere else. We're right next door to Sarasota. So it is my desire that if they live in Manatee County, I want them going to a Manatee County school. And so we need both revenue. We need impact fees and the half-cent sales tax. And for me, it is more of, I think I'm more willing to compromise on the impact fees because I can do less with impact fees versus this other revenue from the sales tax. I can do more, and we have more flexibility.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Probably the number one issue that we hear when it comes to impact fees from our constituents is that growth needs to pay for itself. Given the fact that impact fees for roads and everything except for schools went into place in 1986, and I'm pretty sure most of you were here before 1986. At least I know 3 of you were here before 1986. And I also know that most of you probably have children in schools that you contributed. I wonder what your take on that, that growth has to be the only thing that pays for impact fees when, in fact, Y'all were here in 86. I was here in 86. Didn't pay an impact fee. So I'm just wondering what your take on that is. And my kids went through school here without that impact fee being paid either.
And who would you like to direct the question to specifically?
Everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Benak. As I mentioned earlier, we do think the current structure is inequitable. As an example, I know an individual whose daughter was born in Manatee County. She went off to Gainesville to go to college, but she came back to Manatee County. She's married now, and between the two of them, they have decent jobs, and they want a new house. So they went and bought a new house, but they paid impact fees. So these are people whose family or the fabric of the community, they've been here for generations at this point, and they're paying impact fees. So, that's not growth. They didn't have anything to do with growth. They just wanted to buy a new house. So it's clearly inequitable, and we think that some kind of tax on all real estate transactions is much more equitable and much more palatable because it can be a much smaller bite at the apple, if you will.
As I said, I think this is really it's part of the puzzle. One of the things, responding to something that Dr. Greene said, one of the reasons impact fees are not as flexible as the sales tax, for example, you can't bond those in part because they're not stable. You can't rely on those. If you recall, in 2007, 2008, I probably have as much money in my pocket as we got impact fees during that period. So even on the roads and counties. So you've got to have a stable funding source for that sort of thing, reasonably stable. And that's, so you need that for bonding purposes. You also can't use it to replace existing schools and that sort of thing. Impact fees, I think, are one of the factors that you do need to have. I do think to some extent that you need to be fair with them, but they are something that needs to be looked at and included in that mix.
Again, I think I'm just going to restate it. We need a balance. We can do more with the sales tax but we also need the impact fees so that it will help us start moving faster in bringing these schools online. Because Lakewood Ranch, Braden River, Palmetto High School, they need relief. Between the three schools, it's about 140% over capacity. And by having both revenue sources available for the school district, we can work together as a board moving forward to get that high school online by 2019.
Continuing my nerd alert, you've hit the methodology problem on the head. Is if you're being intellectually honest about an impact fee, you have to take into account and exclude the arrearages that you've created. So I would take exception, and I actually did once before in a public forum with the idea that the impact fee should pay for any of the missed opportunities during the recession. Because by definition, that's not the impact that this development is creating. That's an impact those developments created, and you're now paying for it. And if I were the judge, I'd say, right there, your impact fee fails. That's the problem, and you've hit the nail on the head. And Pete actually touched on the other thing that I had to leave out of my first presentation, so I'll say it now, is the other methodology failure of impact fees is that they fail to take into account the excess that's created. And that's what Pete was talking about the break-even point, is a $100,000 house has marginally less impact on the community than a $5 million house. Like almost the same. In some cases less, because in these $5 million houses that are 15,000 square feet, there's like 2 people living in them 6 months a year. And they don't talk to each other. And so, yeah, your impact fee is way up here. So again, by definition, if we're gonna be intellectually honest about impact fees, okay, that's all I'm asking for, is if we're gonna be intellectually honest, the impact fees that every government proposes, not just Manatee County or the school board, every single one of them overreaches, every time. Because what they're trying to do, the impact fee wouldn't be $9 million, it would be more like $6 million if you were really being intellectually honest about capturing the cost related just to that development. And that's the problem that you're hitting on. And so Thank you for letting me explain that again.
My question today, the way the state legislature is set up, our school system, in terms of new development, and you can please correct me if I'm wrong, if a new project has an impact at the school within the service area, it has the ability to basically tap into an adjacent school area. I understand the concept at its face value, but what my question is for anybody here on the panel, especially Ms. Greene, do you think that is fair, number one? And number two, are there some changes to that might be required in addition to some of the good and bad that you're talking about from the impact fees today?
I propose a new rule that the questions need to be equally distributed because I seem to come up here more than everybody else. I don't know the answer whether that's fair or not, but what I do know is that if we look at our high school service area, we're about hitting close to 103%. So we are above the set amount for service areas that were agreed upon. It was agreed upon for high school somewhere around 95%. And so when we have students who are wanting to attend a school and we have to stand up and tell them, no, you can't attend that school when we're a school district of choice, and our only answer is because it's overcrowded. When that percentage, it gets to a breaking point that we need a new school. And when we look at the impact, we look at, well, where are all these students coming from? And we can see, the majority of them are coming from this particular area. What will be the impact with a new high school? How will that affect Lakewood Ranch, Braden River, and Palmetto? And by building that new high school in the north end, it will bring Lakewood Ranch back close to being under 100%, Braden River under 100%, and Palmetto down to 95%. So I can't answer whether it's there or not. I just know that a lot of houses are, whether they're houses or resales, I just know there's a lot of students there. And they need a school to attend, and one that they should not have to decide, well, I need to drive all the way across the county to get to because there's not one near me. Or we've developed an attendance zone that covers a whole half of the county because we only have one high school on that north of the river. So that's my answer. Thank you.
I want to follow up on that. And I'm glad you asked that question. Because, you did a great job. The impact, keep in mind the impact fees are one of the funding sources, but growth, the lack of facilities because of growth and other issues that we've got, is what caused concurrency back, and really we're referencing concurrency back then. And they've loosened up on concurrency, but we will head back the other way if we don't get the funding for these facilities over, and there will be, I'm sure as I'm standing here, because the pendulum swings back and forth, you're going to have an opportunity, you're going to see a much stricter concurrency come down the pike in the future if we don't get this under control and get the funding sources available. Because people go, look, if the facilities aren't there, we can't have any more growth, and that's going to be a problem for everybody in this room if that happens.
So we all know that we live in paradise, and when we get visitors that come here to visit here in Manatee County, they decide that they want to come back. I think that the sales tax will be important, but history has shown that we don't vote for increases here in Manatee County very often. What do you think you can do as the superintendent to partner and market to the community that just because you don't have kids here that are going to school, that we need this increase in the sales tax? And also, you did a survey, I think I remember, where it was about 60% shows that they're much older people who, no offense if you're older, but they're 60% are older people who are voting in our elections, and they don't have children that are tied to our schools. So how would you partner or get the word out, marketing, saying that this is something that is important for our students?
Well, it's funny you should say that. That's exactly what we're working on at this time, developing that communication plan. And at the last board meeting, I shared with the board about one of our strategies for our communication plan is that that survey revealed that most people don't even, whether they're older, younger, they really don't know anything about the school system. What they know is what they read in the Bradenton Herald or the Sarasota Herald. That's where they get their information. And we have to do a better job of going out and telling our story. And that's why we've come up with the strategy called Manatee, what I've taught, what I've learned. And it's video vignettes that we're going to work with community organizations to get the message. This is what's happening in our school district. And these are the things that we need from you to continue to support our school district. Older people who may not have children in the school district, they are impacted by the quality of their school district. The students that are going to MTC, many of them are being employed in this community. And if they don't have employability skills, or even if they do get employed and they're not the best employee, they're not creating a great service for the people who are living in our community who may not have children, or they educated their children somewhere else. So it is to their benefit that the school district is a high-quality school district. And it benefits not only them, it benefits the entire community. We talked about everybody wants to come here because of how beautiful Manatee County. Well, the goal is when they come, they need to also know that my children will be safe, my children will be educated, and that my children have an opportunity to have a great future. So we are working on that, that story and getting that information out across the community.
My question is, and let me make a statement first, that impact fees, the lack of, is a direct threat to public safety. The issue that impact fees are not needed. Who's going to pay for law enforcement, emergency service, and library in these areas where we're developing? We all have to pay for that if we don't have impact fees. My question is not to you, Dr. Greene. It's to Mr. Barnaby. Mr. Barnaby, affordable houses. I've heard the panel state several times the impact fee, quality of life, what it may have on affordable houses. I don't know any impact fee if government have incentives, property available that has any impact at all. Impact fees do not have, in my opinion, anything to do with affordable houses if the right programs are set up and incentivize that people to develop homes. So my question to you, and you're an expert in many different fields on affordable houses and other things, so I'm gonna use your expertise. I've heard everyone said everything about, but I haven't heard a solution to affordable houses. What do we need to do to incentivize houses and people to develop and build affordable houses in Manatee County, unincorporated area?
Well, Commissioner, obviously, we've worked together on some of these issues in Palmetto, and I know the county is looking at that issue, and we're a little bit in a different area. I think having a funding source to help supplement affordable housing and the impact fees and some of the costs related to that, I know the county has that right now. Making sure it's across the board and available is one factor. Having funding sources other than impact fees for those things is another way to take care of that. I think your TIF program in unincorporated Manatee County is certainly an opportunity. You can focus some of the affordable housing needs through that, helping funding impact fees and some of the other improvements that would normally be caused by the development with that. But there are a number of other issues there that, other things that can be done with a creative approach.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. We'll quickly present what we are referring to as our Tiger by the Tail Award. Board member Misty has been quietly sitting in the back and monitoring all the questions and deciding which one was the most informative and engaging question for the day. And we'd like to bring who we thought won that today.
I will say this was a very tough decision, but sometimes the last question is the best question. So Commissioner Charles Smith, you win the award. A reminder to you again that we have moved all Tiger Bay meetings to the third
Thursday of the month to be more in line with cooperating with the other Tiger Bay associations in our area where we do have multiple memberships there. We do invite you to join us next month, Thursday, May 19th, right here at Pier 22. We have a terrific topic picked out, and Andre actually wrote a great little introduction. We'll be taking another hot topic that we are titling, Where Do My Rights End and Your Rights Begin? As many of you know, there have been what some are calling religious freedom laws being debated and even passing in many states. Some believe that these laws are blatant discrimination wrapped in religion, while others believe that these laws are important to protect our personal values. Recent examples of these laws have been passed in North Carolina and Georgia. With the controversy surrounding the laws in those states and the high probability of laws like this being brought to our legislature in the next session, we'll be hosting a great panel on both sides of the issues, including a constitutional law professor from Stetson Law School to help us all understand this hot topic. So we look forward to seeing you all next month. Have a wonderful afternoon. Go out there and do some business and enjoy this Florida sunshine.